everybody. Welcome to a summer 2014 SWAT review. My name is Kate, otherwise known as Narataki.
And I'm Alan, otherwise known as Hisui.
We are from ReverseThieves.com. You can go there to get other SWAT reviews, as well as our monthly Speakeasy podcast, and 3+ blog posts every week.
This time we are looking at Sailor Moon Crystal from Toei Studios, and it is streaming on Crunchyroll, Hulu, and VIZ.com.
It's streaming everywhere because everybody wants to watch it, and, smart that they did, worldwide simulcast and all that, because, this was the most anticipated show of the season, and had so much hype leading up to it.
Almost a little surprised, but I guess it's just because the show that it didn't have the whole thing of, Space Dandy simul on TV.
I'm kind of surprised about that, too, actually. I thought it seemed like a good candidate for it. Maybe they want to get it dubbed first. But I think it's supposed to be on TV soon. It's not gonna be a long... I feel like I read that.
Yeah, I'm just a little surprised it isn't being, simul broadcast, but they put it out streaming. They didn't leave it in this weird licensing heck where it would surely get pirated out the yin-yang.
Okay, now we should talk about the actual show. I'm a huge Sailor Moon fan, and so I was really looking forward to it, and it really follows the manga pretty closely. There's a couple of additions, like the dream that she's having about being the princess. That's new, but not bad in any way. So, it's pretty much almost the first manga chapter straight.
I did notice a lot of people either noted that or made that a criticism. As I joked on Twitter, did you expect a psychedelic rock opera interpretation of Sailor Moon in this first episode?
And I feel it's a kind of a departure from the original Sailor Moon anime, which looked quite different from the manga. So this is adhering a little bit more closely. And I don't know, as far as story goes, the first story in the original Sailor Moon TV series is the same story. It's told a little bit differently, but it's the same one about the jewelry store and her friend and, tuxedo mask showing up at the end. So it's similar for sure. And so I'm kind of curious, actually, as it goes further out, is it going to be adhering more closely, or is it... I'm not expecting all of the filler of the original TV series, so...
I feel like, if anything, this is kind of the Dragon Ball Kai of Sailor Moon.
Or it could be. We don't really know yet, but...
we already saw Amy at the end of this episode. So, they could go through filler and, not show Amy becoming a scout for several episodes. But, yeah, everything seems to be pointing at kind of a much more streamlined... I think they even mentioned that they were going to try to stick closer to the pacing of the manga.
As far as the character designs go, I really like that they're going with the more sort of fashion-esque feeling of the manga. I love the manga, and so, they're incredibly tall. They definitely do not look their age, so that's kind of a part of it, and I don't mind that at all. I know some people are, of two minds about it, so...
I know you're crying yourself to sleep that they got rid of tuxedo masks.
Oh, thank you, God, he's not wearing pleated pants and a sports jacket. Thank you, Anime Studio. Executive decision, hopefully that was Naoko Takeuchi, I hated the clothing designs! How dare you! Although he does, appear in terrible clothes in the manga, but in the first chapter, he appears in a tuxedo, and, that's where we want to be. So hopefully, even when he's going to be wearing regular clothes, they'll be better than his previous wardrobe.
You didn't want him to look like a cast reject from Miami Vice, Kate?
He still has some bad fashion in the manga also, but I'm hoping, it's going to try to be a little more updated. It does feel a little bit like a throwback. It doesn't feel super modern, the designs, so I'm kind of curious where it's going to land, and I'm wondering if it's kind of more of that idea of, say... to Terra, where it was we're using the 70s sort of style, but it's gonna look a little more updated, but still have that feeling. So I think that's what they're kind of going for is, it's mostly like the manga, but a little bit a little bit cleaner, I guess. But the animation itself was not very good, and that's a little worrisome considering it's the first episode and you usually put your best foot forward.
And they have the weird bi-weekly schedule, so it's every 2 weeks an episode comes out. So you're kind of expecting like OAV level animation. Is like, that is not OAV level animation.
I mean, there were some really awkward, like, moments in the animation where people were not quite, like, their body was not quite turned properly, or, like, you know, the angle of their legs, something like that. And then also, not a fan of the CG transformation sequence at all, but, you know, what can we really do about it at this point? I don't think that's sprucing up anything at all. But it does kind of feel like they're trying to save money. And I don't really get it. I mean, this has been such a big project. They've really made a big deal about it. It's Sailor Moon. It's this beloved franchise. I don't really get the idea of like, oh, we should definitely do this like on the cheap. Like, why would you make that? I don't know why you would make that decision.
I mean, yeah, they don't have to go for the crazy Yamato $21.99, let's release movies every month or so kind of thing, but you're going to get a return on your investment, so you might as well put in big and reap the glory of the merchandise, which is surely where this will make Bonzo dollars.
I'm really curious to see kind of how it does in Japan with new kids who've never really watched Sailor Moon. You know, there may be the Precure crowd or whatever, if they're going to be watching, and, you know, what if it creates these new young fans. I'm kind of curious where they're looking to make that money. But I really liked the first episode as far as, like, the story, and it was Sailor Moon. I'm happy.
I will mention, just because I know you were trying to keep yourself pure for the thing, but I was kind of not reading a whole lot, but just one, the amount of people and sites beyond even the normal anime sites, which we're all talking about it, just like sites that had anything to do with like geekery, or especially female geekery, all had reviews of it. It was just like, I can't think of a show other than Baby Space Dandy that had so many people just, we've got to talk about it because it's that much of a cultural touchstone. And two, I really felt like a lot of the reviews and reaction kind of hinted at less the quality of the show and how much people had expectations going in, because there were people who were totally new, hadn't seen anything before, but just knew of the tremendous reputation. There were people who knew it from the manga, people who knew it from the anime, people who knew it from the anime Americanization, and all of them kind of had this colored reaction of, this is what I expected and then this is what I got, which I felt like is just very interesting, that you don't kind of get that broad spectrum of different expectations and then different reactions from other shows.
I do wonder about expectation about this show, only because there's a lot of nostalgia involved with the original. If you haven't watched the original lately, at the end of the day, the original Sailor Moon manga is not written. It's not as if like, oh, well, we took this really mature manga that was for like 20-somethings and we made a children's television show out of it. It's a children's manga, it's a children's television show, so I think also maybe there's a little bit of a like the wrong expectation, because I don't think that they're trying to create a new mature version of Sailor Moon. It's still a show that's like for young people.
Yeah, and once again, I feel like you're kind of competing with so many different versions, and as you said, nostalgic versions. Like, I definitely saw reviews where people were comparing it to what they remembered Sailor Moon to be, not what actually Sailor Moon was. Like, certain people have been watching, you know, the remastered,
which we've been doing
on Hulu, and you're like, oh yeah, I totally forgot that they introduced Sailor V as a force in the universe really early on. People being like, did they introduce Amy so quickly? Did they not? You know, people remembering stuff that happened in the manga happening in the anime and vice versa. So yeah, it's really, well, like I said, it's this weird universe of expectation.
I was overall happy, at least story-wise. Again, I'm not really very pleased with the animation quality, but I'm watching this show. Absolutely, it's a must-watch. If only because, my nostalgia for it makes me want to watch it and doesn't make my expectations any higher. It makes me so happy. And maybe that's also because I've been rereading the manga, I've been rewatching the TV series, so my expectations are exactly where they should be, which is equal reality of what those things are. So,
and once again, I feel like there is also this thing of man, this is really stereotypical magical girl stuff, and it's yes, because it is pretty much the start of every kind of tokusatsu influenced magical girl show ever.
Which is to say, all things after Sailor Moon, which were inspired by Sailor Moon.
Yeah, so it's yes, it feels like all those things because it is the version of all those things. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much of the fandom sticks with it after this first thing. But I think it's definitely worth watching. As long as you are able to take off your nostalgia glasses, I think it's a fun time.